Diplomat Tejo stood at the observation deck of the Concordat vessel, watching as the human ship approached. It was larger than he expected, gray and angular with strange markings painted on its hull. The humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 Earth years ago, yet they already had an impressive fleet. "Remarkable, isn't it?" said Senior Ambassador Juno beside him. "These humans developed FTL drives using principles our scientists never considered." Tejo nodded, his translucent skin shifting color slightly with his excitement. "Their approach to physics is unusual. They make intuitive leaps where we would proceed methodically." "That's why you're here," Juno said. "To understand how they think. The Concordat needs diplomats who can relate to new species, especially ones as unpredictable as humans." The human vessel grew larger in the viewport. Tejo could now make out strange symbols on its side, DDG-117, and below it, Vigilant. "What are those markings?" he asked. Juno's skin darkened in the Novali equivalent of a shrug. "We're not sure. Possibly some form of identification. You can ask during your tour." An hour later, Tejo stood in the docking bay as the airlock cycled. His 4 hearts beat rapidly. This was his first direct contact with humans, and his career depended on making a good impression. The airlock door slid open. 3 humans stepped through, 2 male, 1 female, according to Tejo's briefing materials. Their skin tones varied, but all wore the same blue uniforms with different insignia. "Welcome aboard the UNSS Vigilant," said the central figure, a male with short dark hair and what Tejo recognized as command insignia. "I'm Captain Miho. This is my executive officer, Commander Jasung, and our chief science officer, Lieutenant Commander Yunha." Tejo performed the formal Concordat greeting gesture, bowing his upper body while extending both right arms. "I am Diplomatic Envoy Tejo of the Galactic Concordat. I bring greetings from the 1200 worlds of our Union." To his surprise, Captain Miho extended his hand. On Earth, we usually shake hands when meeting. "May I?" Tejo hesitated, then extended his primary right hand. The human's grip was firm but gentle, careful not to damage Tejo's more delicate appendage. "We've prepared a tour of our vessel," said Commander Jasung. "We hope to show you that humans come in peace." As they walked through the ship, Tejo was struck by how different it was from Concordat vessels. Where Concordat ships were organic-looking with curved walls and soft surfaces, the human ship was all straight lines and hard angles. And everywhere were those strange symbols, numbers and letters marking every section and door. "Captain," Tejo said as they passed a large DDG-117 painted on an interior wall, "may I ask what these markings mean?" "They appear throughout your vessel." Captain Miho looked momentarily confused, then smiled. "That's our hull number. DDG means Guided Missile Destroyer, and 117 is this specific ship's designation. Every ship in our fleet has one." "But why?" "Your sensors can identify vessels. Your communication systems require no visual markers." "It's tradition," Miho replied. "Dating back to when our ships sailed oceans instead of space. Each ship has a name and number to identify it." "The Vigilant," Tejo said, remembering the other marking. "Yes," Commander Yuna said, speaking for the first time. "Names give our ship's identity. This is the 5th vessel named Vigilant in our fleet's history." As they continued the tour, Tejo noticed how the humans touched the walls of their ship almost affectionately. They spoke of the vessel as if it were alive. When a junior officer passed Captain Miho in a corridor, he said, "She's running smoothly today, sir." "She?" Tejo asked. "Another tradition," Captain Miho explained. "Ships are traditionally referred to as female in many human cultures." By the end of the tour, Tejo's datapad was filled with notes about human oddities. They named their vessels. They gave them genders. They painted numbers on them. They treated them almost like living beings. Later, as he returned to the Concordat ship, Ambassador Juno asked, "What did you learn?" Tejo looked back at the human vessel. "They are strange, these humans. They form emotional attachments to machines. They give names to metal and circuits. I don't understand it yet, but I believe these customs are important to them. Do you think they will make good allies? Taeho considered the question. I think they will make interesting ones. Their approach to technology is unlike anything in the Concordat. These whole numbers and names, they are just the beginning of their oddities. 3 months after first contact, Taeho found himself standing on the bridge of the UNSS Indomitable, BB-103, a human battleship twice the size of the Vigilant. The exchange program placed diplomats on vessels of their new allies to learn about each other's cultures. Taeho was the first Novali to live aboard a human warship. Welcome aboard, Diplomat Taeho, said Captain Hayami, a woman with short black hair streaked with gray. The Indomitable is honored to host you. Thank you, Captain. I am eager to learn about your vessel and crew. Taeho's translator converted his musical Novali speech into human English. Lieutenant Jaiwo, a young officer with a friendly smile, was assigned as Taeho's guide. I'll show you to your quarters first, then we can begin the orientation. As they walked through the massive ship, Taeho noticed the crew touching a metal plate by one doorway. Why do they touch that? He asked. That's a tradition, Jaiwo explained. That plate is from the original Indomitable, a wooden sailing ship from 300 years ago. Touching it is for luck. The original? You mean this ship is not the first with this name? Jaiwo smiled. This is the fourth Indomitable. BB-103 means this is the third battleship with this name. They stopped at a large room with glass cases along the walls. This is our heritage room, Jaiwo said. Every ship named Indomitable has one. Inside the cases were old photographs, pieces of metal and wood, and small artifacts. One case held a tattered cloth with stars on it. That flag flew on the first Indomitable during a great battle, Jaiwo explained. When that ship was decommissioned, the flag moved to the next ship of the same name, and then to the next, and now to ours. Taeho studied the room carefully. So these objects connect your current vessel to past ones? Exactly. We carry their spirit with us. Their victories, their losses, their lessons. Over the next few weeks, Taeho observed many strange human customs. The crew celebrated the birthday of the ship with a cake. They held ceremonies when crossing imaginary lines in space. And they constantly referred to the ship as she and her rather than it. One evening, Taeho joined Chief Engineer Min-jae for dinner. Why do humans form such attachments to vessels? He asked. In the Concordat, ships are simply tools. Min-jae considered the question while sipping his drink. These ships are our homes in the vastness of space. We trust them with our lives. But it's more than that. The hull number and name connect us to history. He pointed to a painting of an older vessel, also named Indomitable. During the Third World War on Earth, that Indomitable saved thousands of refugees while under heavy fire. 7 crew members died protecting civilians. When we serve on this ship, we carry their legacy. We try to be worthy of their sacrifice. Taeho's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue shade. So the hull number is not just identification. It's continuity. Exactly, Min-jae nodded. BB-103 isn't just metal and circuits. She's the culmination of centuries of human experience. Later that night, Taeho wandered the quiet hallways of the massive ship. He found himself in the mess hall where a group of off-duty crew members were singing songs about old ships and brave sailors. Petty Officer Doyen noticed Taeho and waved him over. Join us, sir. We're teaching Ensign Seojin the old songs. Every sailor needs to know them. Why is that? Taeho asked as he sat down. Because someday we'll be the old sailors teaching new ones, Doyen laughed. That's how traditions continue. Taeho listened as they sang about ships that sailed oceans of water, not stars. About brave captains and loyal crews. The songs were hundreds of years old, yet these space travelers knew every word. The next morning, Taeho observed a ceremony on the flight deck. A young officer named Jisoo was being promoted. Captain Hayami pinned new insignia on her uniform, then said, Lieutenant Jisoo, your grandfather served on the previous Indomitable. He would be proud to see you continuing the family tradition aboard BB-103. As the weeks passed, Teiho began to understand. These hull numbers were more than identification markers. They were threads connecting generations of humans across time. The BB-103 wasn't just the current Indomitable, it was all the Indomitables that had ever existed, their stories and lessons preserved and passed down. In his nightly report to the Concordat, Teiho wrote, "Humans form relationships with their vessels unlike anything in our experience. They give them names and numbers that carry historical weight. They treat ships as living entities with personalities and spirits. This practice seems illogical, yet it creates a powerful bond between crew and vessel that may explain their extraordinary resilience in crisis situations." He paused, then added, "Perhaps there is wisdom in their oddity that we have yet to fully comprehend." Teiho was studying star charts in the navigation room when the alarm sounded. The high-pitched wail made his sensitive ears hurt, and his skin flashed a startled yellow. "All hands to battle stations," Captain Hyami's voice came over the speakers. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Lieutenant Jaiwu burst into the room. "Sir, you need to come with me to the diplomatic safety area." "What's happening?" Teiho asked as they hurried through corridors now filled with rushing crew members. 3 unknown vessels appeared at the edge of the system, Jaiwu explained. They opened fire on a Concordat science ship without warning. Teiho's heart raced. "My people are under attack?" "Yes, and Captain Hyami has ordered the Indomitable to intercept." Instead of going to the safety area, Teiho convinced Jaiwu to take him to the bridge. There, Captain Hyami stood calmly at the center of a storm of activity. "Status report," she demanded. "Concordat vessel CRS Harmony is taking heavy fire," reported Commander Sungo from the tactical station. "Their shields are failing. The attackers appear to be vector raiders." On the main screen, Teiho could see a smaller Concordat vessel surrounded by 3 predatory-looking ships. The Harmony was a research vessel with minimal weapons. It wouldn't survive long. "Time to intercept?" Captain Hyami asked. 3 minutes at maximum speed, Captain. "Push the engines. I want us there in 2. The ship lurched as it accelerated beyond standard limits. Warning lights flashed on several consoles. "Engineering reports strain on the drive cores," someone called out. "The Indomitable can take it," Captain Hyami said firmly. "She's been through worse." Teiho watched in fascination as the humans referred to their ship like a living thing even in this moment of crisis. As they approached the battle, Teiho saw his people's ship taking devastating hits. Its graceful hull was scorched and broken in multiple places. "Weapons range in 30 seconds, Commander Sungo reported. "Put us between the Harmony and those raiders," Captain Hyami ordered. The tactical officer looked up in shock. "Captain, that puts us in the crossfire of all 3 enemy vessels." "I'm aware, Commander. The Indomitable has never left allies to die. Not in 200 years of service." The massive human battleship moved into position, deliberately placing itself as a shield for the smaller Concordat vessel. The enemy ships immediately redirected their fire toward the new threat. The bridge shook violently as the first salvos hit. Teiho grabbed a railing to stay upright. "Return fire, all batteries," Captain Hyami ordered calmly. "Communications, tell the Harmony to retreat behind us and make repairs." The Indomitable's weapons roared to life, striking the nearest raider with devastating force. But the enemy ships were fast and maneuverable, circling the larger battleship and hitting it from multiple angles. "Hull breach on Deck 7, someone called out. "Seal those sections," Commander Sungo ordered. "Redirect power to starboard shields." Another hit rocked the ship hard enough to throw several crew members to the floor. A console exploded in a shower of sparks, burning the officer working there. Medical personnel rushed to help. "Captain," the engineering officer called, "we've lost power to the main guns." "Switch to secondaries and hold position," Captain Hyami replied without hesitation. "The Harmony needs 3 more minutes to restart their engines." Teiho could not believe what he was seeing. The human ship was taking terrible damage to protect his people's vessel. In the Concordat, protocol would have demanded a tactical retreat and a return with reinforcements. No captain would sacrifice their ship this way. "Captain," Tejo said, approaching Hayami, "the Harmony is not worth the Indomitable. You should withdraw." Captain Hayami looked at him with steady eyes. "Diplomat Tejo, BB-103 has never abandoned allies in need. Not in her current form, not in any of her previous incarnations. But you might lose your ship. Then we would be the fourth Indomitable to fall in the line of duty," she said simply. "And the fifth would carry on our legacy." Another massive hit shook the bridge. A support beam crashed down, striking Captain Hayami. She fell, blood streaming from a wound on her head, but immediately struggled to get up. "Maintain position," she ordered, her voice weaker but still commanding. BB-103 stands her ground. The battle raged for another 7 minutes. The Indomitable lost weapons, shields, and suffered multiple hull breaches. But it never moved from its protective position over the Harmony. Finally, a distress call from the Indomitable brought 2 more human vessels rushing to their aid. The raiders, now outgunned, fled into deep space. In the medical bay afterward, Tejo found Captain Hayami being treated for her injuries. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why risk your ship, your life, for our research vessel?" Despite her pain, Captain Hayami smiled. "Because that's what the Indomitable does. That's what she's always done. BB-103 is more than just a number, it's a promise to uphold the traditions of every ship that came before us." For the first time, Tejo truly began to understand the power behind those simple hull numbers. The Indomitable limped through space at reduced speed. Repair crews worked around the clock to fix the damage from the battle. Tejo spent most of his time helping in whatever way he could. As a diplomat, he had little technical knowledge, but he could carry tools and supplies for the exhausted human crew. "You don't have to do this," Chief Engineer Minjae told him as they worked together to seal a hull breach on Deck 5. "You're a diplomat, not a repair technician." "I want to help," Tejo replied. "Your ship, your Indomitable, saved my people's vessel." Minjae smiled through a layer of grime on his face. "That's what BB-103 does. She protects her friends." Tejo noticed how even in this crisis, the humans spoke of their ship as if it were alive. This wasn't just a quirk of language, they truly believed the vessel had a spirit or personality. Later that day, Tejo was carrying replacement parts through a corridor he hadn't visited before. A sign on one door read, "Heritage Room." Curious, he entered. The room was undamaged, protected by its location deep within the ship. Glass cases lined the walls, filled with objects from previous vessels named Indomitable. Tejo walked slowly around the room, studying each item. "Interesting place, isn't it?" a voice said. Tejo turned to see Commander Sungo standing in the doorway. The tactical officer still had a bandage on his forehead from an injury during the battle. "What is the purpose of this room?" Tejo asked. "It's our connection to the past," Sungo explained, walking inside. "Every object here came from one of the previous Indomitables." He pointed to a tattered flag. "That flew on the first Indomitable during the Battle of Coral Sea in 1942. Then to a bent piece of metal. That's from the reactor housing of the second Indomitable, which saved 1,600 refugees during the resource wars." Tejo noticed a data chip in one case. "And this?" "That contains the final log entry from the third Indomitable before she was destroyed defending Earth Colony 7 from pirates. Only 7 crew members survived. One of them was Captain Hayami's grandmother." Tejo's skin shifted to a deep blue of surprise. "The captain is descended from someone who served on a previous Indomitable?" "Many of us are," Sungo said proudly. "My great-grandfather served on the second. Lieutenant Jaiwoo's mother served on the third. We call ourselves Legacy Crew." Tejo moved to a wall covered with images, photographs, and paintings of ships. All looked different, from a wooden vessel with sails to massive space warships, but all bore the name Indomitable. "So when Captain Hayami refused to abandon the Harmony, she was upholding the legacy of every Indomitable captain before her," Sungo finished. "BB-103 means we're the third battleship to bear this name and number. We inherit their honor and their duty. In the days that followed, Tejo spent much time in the Heritage Room, studying the history of the Indomitable lineage. He also interviewed crew members, asking about their connection to the ship's hull number and name. Engineer Jean Wu told him, "My father served on this same ship. When I was assigned to BB-103, he gave me his service pin and said, 'Take care of her. She'll take care of you.'" Medical Officer Unyong explained, "When I treat injured crew members, I sometimes whisper to the ship, asking her to help them heal. It sounds silly, but every doctor who has served on an Indomitable does it." Even the youngest crew member, Ensign Dohan, said, "Before joining the service, I read about the Indomitable's history. When I got assigned to BB-103, I felt like I was joining something bigger than myself." One evening, Tejo found himself in a quiet corner of the observation deck with Captain Hayami, who was still recovering from her injuries. "I've been studying your ship's history," Tejo said. "I think I'm beginning to understand these hull numbers." Captain Hayami nodded. "What have you learned?" "They're not just identification marks. They're connections. Links in a chain stretching back through your history." "That's part of it," she agreed. "In the Concordat, we build ships, use them, and replace them when they become outdated. There is no continuation." "That's the difference," Captain Hayami said softly. BB-103 isn't just metal and circuits. She carries the spirit of every Indomitable before her. When we're in danger, we don't just fight for ourselves. We fight for everyone who ever served under this name and number." Tejo's skin took on a thoughtful purple hue. "During the battle, your crew performed beyond what should have been possible. Engineers worked despite injuries. Tactical officers stayed at their posts even as systems exploded around them. Because no one wanted to be the first to let BB-103 down," Hayami said simply. That night, Tejo reviewed combat data from the battle. The Indomitable had sustained damage that should have disabled it completely, yet it had continued fighting. Its crew had performed at levels that defied logical explanation. Perhaps, Tejo thought, these hull numbers represented more than tradition. Perhaps they were a form of power that his people had never considered. The power of legacy. 6 months after the battle, Tejo stood before the Concordat High Council. The 7 elder members watched him from their elevated seats, their skin shifting through colors of curiosity and skepticism. "Diplomat Tejo," said High Counselor Jimin, her voice musical in their native language, "you have requested this hearing to present findings about human military practices. Please proceed." Tejo's skin rippled with determination as he activated the display behind him. Images of human ships appeared, each with its distinctive hull number clearly visible. "Esteemed Council, my time aboard the human vessel UNSS Indomitable taught me much about their species. Their most distinctive practice, assigning permanent names and hull numbers to their vessels, appears trivial at first glance. I have come to believe it is anything but." He showed footage from the battle, where the damaged Indomitable stood firm against overwhelming odds. "By our tactical analysis, this ship should have retreated or been destroyed. Yet it continued fighting despite critical damage. Why? Because of this." Tejo highlighted the hull number BB-103. This simple designation created a psychological effect I had never seen before. High Counselor Yuna leaned forward. "Are you suggesting these markings give their ships special powers?" "Not the markings themselves," Tejo explained. "Rather, the connection they create. Humans don't see ships as replaceable tools. They see them as links in a chain stretching back through their history. Each crew inherits the triumphs and failures of those who served on ships with the same name and number before them." Tejo showed images from the Indomitable's Heritage Room. They keep physical pieces of previous vessels. They tell stories about past missions. They sing songs about ships from centuries ago. These practices create a powerful psychological effect. Crews perform beyond their normal capabilities because they don't want to fail the legacy of their hull number. The council members exchanged doubtful glances, their skin shifting to colors of uncertainty. "This sounds like primitive superstition," said Counselor Mincio. "I thought so too," Tejo admitted. "But the data cannot be denied. I analyzed combat records from 57 human ships spanning 3 centuries. Vessels with established lineages, those carrying names and numbers with historical significance, show 23% better performance in crisis situations than newly designated ships. He presented charts and statistics backing his claim. The council fell silent, studying the evidence. "What are you proposing?" High Counselor Jimin finally asked. "I suggest we implement a similar system for Concordat vessels. Not just names and numbers for identification, but continuity between generations of ships. We could transfer artifacts and records from decommissioned vessels to their successors, creating lineages of our own." The debate lasted for hours. Some council members dismissed the idea as adopting alien superstitions. Others saw potential value in the psychological effects. Finally, High Counselor Jimin called for a vote. "The council approves a limited trial of Diplomat Teiho's proposal," she announced. "One vessel will be designated as the first of its lineage. Teiho, given your understanding of this practice, you will oversee the project." 1 year later, Teiho stood on the bridge of a newly constructed Concordat vessel. Unlike traditional Concordat ships with their organic curves and unmarked hulls, this one bore a distinctive marking, CCV Friendship NC-001. Captain Dohyun, a human liaison officer assigned to the project, stood beside him. "She's beautiful," he said. "The first Concordat vessel with a proper name and hull number." NC-001, Teiho explained to the Novali crew. "N for Novali, C for Cruiser, 001 for the first of its kind. And friendship to honor our alliance with humanity." Senior Engineer Minji approached with a small metal container. "We've prepared the heritage box as you suggested, Diplomat Teiho. What should be our first artifact?" Teiho opened the box and placed inside a small metal plate inscribed with the date and the names of all who had worked to bring this project to life. "This is the beginning," he said. "Centuries from now, when NC-001 is long gone and NC-057 sails among distant stars, they will look back to this moment as the start of their lineage." The crew gathered for the commissioning ceremony. Both human and Concordat representatives stood together as Captain Sohee, the first commander of the Friendship, gave her oath. "I accept command of CCV Friendship NC-001, first of her name," she said, using the human phrasing that once seemed so strange to Teiho. "I pledge to uphold the values she represents and to create a legacy worthy of those who will follow us." As the ceremony ended, Captain Dohyun approached Teiho. "How does it feel to create something that might last for centuries?" Teiho's skin shifted to a warm gold of satisfaction. "It feels right. My people have always valued efficiency and practicality. We build things to serve a purpose, then replace them when needed. But humans taught me something important, that continuity has its own value." He looked out at the stars through the viewport. "Hull numbers aren't just identification. They're a promise that what we do today matters tomorrow. That's why battleships have hull numbers, because humans don't just build ships. They build legacies." The Friendship's engines hummed to life, carrying the first Concordat legacy vessel into the depths of space, bearing a simple designation that would someday become legendary, NC-001.